Hello，你好，Welcome back，欢迎回来to Wisdom Wednesday with Johnny Tiger. Date is July 12th, 2023, and very soon it's going to be July 13th. Wow, this is getting so late, and I've had a super long day. I've been out of bed since 6 in the morning and just been go, 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 go all day long. Finally, just before midnight, I was able to finally get around to today's video. Um, so, if I sound a little bit incoherent, it probably is because I am extremely tired, or maybe because of the cup of beer I had when I was out earlier. Anyway, regardless, today we are going to talk about a rather distasteful subject. We're going to be talking about the really despicable habit Chinese people had for thousands of years of uh, digging up people's ancestors. Yes, I'm talking about grave robbing and desecrating someone's ancestral tomb or resting place of their ancestors. This may sound like something that is really barbaric, and it is, but it definitely happened uh, in Chinese culture. As I'm sad to say that it even happened much more often than most of us like to admit. It's almost like every single time that when you piss someone off, one of the things that you have to worry about them doing is desecrating the resting place of your ancestors. Luckily, this practice is no longer being utilized today in the modern society. Uh, but for thousands of years, this was a very real issue in Chinese culture. And today we're going to look at three reasons why digging up someone's ancestors was such a common thing to do. And just in case you are wondering how come we have a black screen, it's because it is really dark outside. So even if I set up the camera like I usually do, you have nothing to look at anyway. So I decided to go with a black screen and let you guys relax your eyes so you can focus on what you are listening to. Now, before we get into the whys and hows of digging up someone's ancestral graves, we're going to look at a few simple vocabularies. Graves, tombs in Mandarin is called 坟墓, Fenmu, 坟墓. Um, ancestor is pronounced 祖先, Jushian. 祖先 means, well, 祖 means master, and 先 means people who come before. So 祖先 means the masters that came before. So we can combine the two and say the graves of your ancestors. In Mandarin, this is called 祖坟, Jufen, 祖 master, and 坟 uh, grave. Uh, 坟墓 is graves. 祖先 is ancestors, and 祖坟 is the tomb or the grave of the or the cemetery of the ancestors. There were mm, three major reasons why Chinese people traditionally like to practice this very despicable act of digging up someone's ancestors. First and foremost was superstition. I'm sure most of you have heard about Feng Shui in one form or another. Feng Shui means through the study of geography and land and air and water and nature, you are able to make changes to your fortune, to your destiny, by uh, doing things that will align with the land, the sky, the sea, the river, and all the energy around you. And one of the major feng shui practice throughout Chinese history was to pick the right place to bury your forebears, your parents, your grandparents. It is believed that if you pick the right place for them, then uh, all the later descendants will enjoy wealth and success and prosperity. While to us nowadays this is very laughable, but in the old days this was very serious stuff. How serious? Well, let me tell you the following examples. During the Han Dynasty, there was a very famous general, the best and most famous general of the Han Dynasty named Han Xin. We have spoken about Han Xin in a past episode. Suffice to say, Han Xin was one of the guys that brought the Han Dynasty into being about 2,300 years ago, 2,200 or 2,300 years ago, when the first Han Emperor became emperor. Han Xin was one of the guys that made it happen. Legend have it that when Han Xin was just a shepherd, when he was nobody, he was out tending to his herd one day, and he decided to take a nap on the grassy hill where his sheep were grazing. While he was sleeping, he dreamt of one of the nymphs descending from the heaven to tell him that where he was right now, where he was laying, was uh, one of the very powerful feng shui ground. And if he were to bury his ancestors there, then he would become a man of great wealth and great power. When Han Xin woke up from his nap, he looked around him and he remembered his dream. Oh, this is the place where the gods told me I should bury my ancestor, he said to himself. But there's a problem. His dad has already passed away, and because his dad died in a foreign land, he didn't know exactly where his dad's body was because they never found him. He just like went traveling and never came back. Uh, and his mom was still alive, so he couldn't very well bury her. So after contemplating this conundrum, Han Xin decided to cut off his mom's hair and fingernail and toenail and bury those uh, things in this piece of ground that was shown to him in his dream. Now, in the ancient Chinese belief, every part of your body uh, count as your person. Every part of your body. This is why in the old days, cutting fingernail, cutting hair was pretty important stuff because you wouldn't simply just waste your body because fingernails and hair was said to contain your essence. So by burying his mom's hair and fingernail and toenail in this piece of sacred, super powerful feng shui ground, uh, Han Xin believed that he had secured a good future for himself. And indeed, he became one of the greatest generals, not just in the Han Dynasty, but in the entire Chinese history. Unfortunately, maybe because of the way he went about obtaining his wealth and power, because uh, burying your mom's hair and fingernail in the piece of ground where the gods told you to bury your ancestors, you gotta admit that's kind of forcing it. That's really pushing it. It's kind of uh, exploiting the loophole So maybe it's because of that. Maybe because he cheated destiny. Uh, so Han Xin did not live very long. Soon after he became a general, soon after the emperor took the throne, Han Xin was put to death. Another example can be found in the Song Dynasty uh, with a man by the name of Pan Tongyuan. Now, Pan Tongyuan was not very notable as a person, but his son, Pan Tong, became a very high ranking minister of the emperor of the Song Dynasty. And even more, Pan Tong's grandson became a very noted, very well decorated general for the Ming Dynasty. And in fact, the Pan family have traditionally enjoyed great wealth and great prestige, even into the modern era. So today, even to this modern time, the descendants of the Pan family still regularly go back to their ancestral uh, tomb uh, where the original guy, Pan Tongyuan, was buried, and they would go back and pay homage to the tomb and uh, pay respect and pray at the side of the tomb because they believe it was the deeds of Pan Tongyuan that allowed the Pan family to enjoy over 1,000 years of success and well-being. So what exactly did Pan Tongyuan did? What did Pan Tongyuan do? Um, Pan Tongyuan, like I said, he wasn't very notable. He tried to be a scholar. He tried to go through the imperial scholarly exam so he could work for the government, but he never did. He never passed the exam. Even into his 40s, even when his son was almost old enough to start going to take the imperial exam himself, Pan Tongyuan was still uh, pretty much failing every time he tried to write the exam. So, in a fit of desperation, he decided that his life was over. He's 40 years old already, and he obviously wasn't going to get anywhere. So, uh, using the knowledge he had, because after all these years of studying for the imperial exam, uh, he did acquire a lot of knowledge, even though he didn't pass the exam. So, using the knowledge that he learned during his study and travel, he found a piece of land that was a great feng shui uh, uh, magic. It was good medicine. This was a piece of land that he knew if he was to get buried there after he died, then his son, his grandson, his descendant would enjoy the kind of success that he himself never did. But there were a couple of snags, a couple of issues. One was this piece of land that he found, this great magical feng shui land, was not his. This actually wasn't even in his county. It was in the next county, the county neighboring to his. So he didn't have the jurisdiction to get buried there. Secondly, he was only in his 40s, and he didn't really know how long he was going to live. So, what if he waited and someone else took that piece of land and made it their own gravesite? Then he would be robbed of the success of his descendants. Like I said, Pan Tongyuan was very desperate at this point, having failed the exam. The only thing that was going through his mind was how could he make his descendants successful. So he hatched a very harebrained, crazy plot. to allow himself to be buried on that piece of land in the neighboring county. After conversing with his son and letting him know what to do, Pan Tongyuan went and bought an ox, and he took the ox to the neighboring county and allowed the ox to trample and destroy one of the farmer's farms, and just a random farmer's farm. He just let the ox loose, and the ox did what oxen did, ate all the crop and uh, trampled a lot of plant and all that stuff. And of course, that made a great commotion, and the farmer came out and, hey, what the hell? The farmer came out, hey, hey, who are you? How come your ox is destroying my property? You're messing up my property. You need to pay. You need to pay. You need to pay for the damage. And Pan Zhongyuan, even though it was his own fault, he let the ox destroy the guy's property on purpose. He did not apologize. Instead, he got very belligerent. He got very vicious. Got in the farmer's face and said, "Yeah, okay, so it's my ox. What do you want to do about it, huh? You want to fight? You want to fight me?" And then he punched the farmer in the face. Now, you can imagine this being 1,000 years ago, people were not as civilized, and your ox just destroyed my property, and you dare to punch me in the face? So the farmer would not back down, of course. So the farmer called all his cousins and brothers and neighbors and best friend and a whole gang of them surrounded Pan Zhongyuan, demanding that he pay for the damage and apologize for assaulting the farmer. And Pan Zhongyuan still refused to apologize. He even attacked them. He charged towards this group of very angry farmers and tried to hit them. And needless to say, these very angry farmers beat the crap out of him. And during the beating, one of them got a little bit heavy handed, and Pan Tongyuan died from smack to the head that caved in his skull. Now, a lot of us at this point is like, well, what the hell was wrong with him? Why was he acting like that? Did he have a death wish? Yes, he did. He did it on purpose. After they killed him by accident, of course, uh, his son Pantong came out and started crying and went to the magistrate and wanting justice to be done. And the magistrate was in a really difficult situation because, on the one hand, Pan Tongyuan was not local; he's from the neighboring county, and he did start the fight. But it was true that he was killed by one of the people in this county. So the law said the killer should be put to death. But everyone there knew that Pan Tongyuan started the fight first. So the magistrate didn't know how to uh, decide on this, how to decide on this case, uh, and be fair without angering everybody in the county. Just as the magistrate was so frustrated that he was ready to pull out his own hair because of how complicated this case was, Pan Tong, the son of Pan Tongyuan, went to the magistrate and said, "Look, I'm not an unreasonable guy. I'm not unreasonable. I understand my dad started the fight first, but your people did kill him. So I can't go home empty-handed. uh, I understand that you don't want to execute one of your own guy because, yeah, they kind of were forced into the situation. So tell you what, let's compromise. There's a piece of land on your county. If you give that piece of land to us, and we use that as burial ground for my father, then we'll drop the case." Well, the magistrate, after carefully weighing the pros and cons of, well, should we pursue the case or should we just give them the land, decided that giving them that piece of land was probably the better course of action. So they did. They signed the land over to the Pan family, and they were able to bury the body of Pan Tongyuan on that piece of land. And like I said, ever since Pan Tongyuan was buried on that piece of land. The Pan family has enjoyed over 1,000 years of success. Every few generations there would be a general. Every few generations there would be a high-ranking government official, and it's still going on today. Is this coincidence, or does Feng Shui really work? No one can say for sure. So, going back to our original topic, why do people dig up people's ancestral grave? Is usually either to destroy their feng shui. Let's say someone who's unhappy that how come all the money go to uh, the Trump family. Let's say someone who really dislike Donald Trump may decide, well, maybe Trump has so much money because their ancestors is buried on a piece of land that have good feng shui. So if we dig that up, destroy that, then the Trump family will lose all their advantages. So some people will do that, and some people will also do it thinking that if your family is doing so good because your ancestors buried under good feng shui. So obviously, if I dig up your ancestor and put my own ancestor there, then I can be just as successful as you are. So the first major reason why people dig up each other's ancestors throughout Chinese history was mostly to do with feng shui and superstition. The second reason is actually a lot more practical. The second reason why people traditionally would dig up other people's ancestral graves is simply for money. And this one has a definite historical figure that we can pin this one on. Going back to the Han Dynasty during the chaotic period of the Three Kingdoms, we talked about the Three Kingdoms in the past. The Kingdom Shu, the Kingdom Wei, the Kingdom Wu. Three kingdoms divided up China, and they were battling each other for supremacy, see who would end up ruling China. Uh, Out of all these kingdoms, initially, the poorest kingdom was the kingdom of Wei, who was led by the warlord Cao Cao. Unlike a lot of other warlords and ministers and lords at the time, Cao Cao, even though he was from a noble birth, but he was nowhere as high ranking or as high on the totem as most of the other lords. So while the other lords enjoy great wealth and could amass huge armies, Cao Cao in the beginning had nothing. He had great strategy. He had great plans, but he didn't have the money to realize these plans. And to mobilize an army, as most of you know, costs a lot of money. With basically no money equals no food. No food equals no army. So Cao Cao turned his attention to how to get money from the dead. In Warlord Cao Cao's military was the first and only ever military branch of grave robbers in the entire Chinese history. Yeah, I'm not even joking about that. Cao Cao's army actually had a grave robbing branch, and their job was to go around the countryside with hammers and pickaxes and tools and what kind of equipment they had, and just look. up old ancient tombs, the bigger the better, and open them up and take everything that's in those ancestral tombs. It was said that during Cao Cao's reign, he destroyed over 100 ancestral tombs, most of them of old queens and kings and emperors. It was said just one of these tombs held enough riches to feed Cao Cao's entire army for more than 10 years. So to dig up people's ancestors, robbing people's tombs was the secret of Cao Cao's success, and Cao Cao became the Grand Master, the first person in Chinese history to be on record for this kind of large-scale tomb robbing and desecration of people's ancestors. The third and last most common motive for why people would dig up other people's ancestor was for revenge. Let me bring you back again to the Han Dynasty. It seems like in Han Dynasty people like to mess around with graves for some reason. Um, but back to Han Dynasty, there was a very high-ranking, very powerful nobleman by the name of Li Hao. Not Ni Hao, but Li Hao. Li Hao was a very powerful nobleman, and he was very corrupt. He did a lot of bad things. And Li Hao had a rival, a good nobleman by the name of Su Qian. Now, Su Qian, being a good guy and down to earth and trying to enforce justice and fairness and all that stuff, constantly was a thorn in Li Hao's side. So finally, one day Li Hao was able to uh, hatch a plot that gets Su Qian murdered. After Su Qian's death, Su Qian's son Su Buwei uh, decided to have vengeance on Li Hao. But how could he, just a son of a nobleman that is no longer alive, uh, bring vengeance upon a powerful political figure like Li Hao? Li Hao was always traveling around with bodyguards. He's always well protected. He has so much connection in the imperial palace. So there's nothing Su Buwei could do to him. This was when Su Buwei decided, okay, fine. If I can't do anything to you, I'm going to target your dad. So he hired some people to look up where Li Hao's dad was buried, and he went and dug up Li Hao's dad's body, and he chopped off the corpse's head, and he took the head of Li Hao's dad to the marketplace and put it out on a stake with a sign on the side that said, "This is the head of the corrupt nobleman Li Hao's dad." And then he went into hiding. When Li Hao heard that his dad's head was desecrated and being on display at the marketplace for all the commoners to laugh at, he was so angry that he actually got sick, and shortly after he died. Thus, Su Buwei, even though he couldn't uh, ever hoped to go up against someone like Li Hao, got his revenge in the end by messing with Li Hao's dead father, causing Li Hao to be so angry that Li Hao ended up dying from his uh, ailment. So throughout Chinese history, this has been a very petty, very unfortunately kind of dark and distasteful way of having revenge on someone, especially if someone that you cannot defeat in fair combat or in any kind of financial contest. Uh, the idea is, hey, if I can't get to you, I can get to your ancestor. You can have bodyguards around you all 24 hours, but there's no way you're going to be able to guard your ancestral tomb uh, uh, all the time. So just you wait. I'm going to get you eventually, either through you or through your ancestors. So those were the three major reasons why Chinese people traditionally have been really into this despicable practice of digging up people's ancestors. One, because of superstition, because of feng shui. Two, because of money. And third, for a way of revenge. Thank you for checking out today's Wisdom Wednesday, and we'll be back again tomorrow for Toy Thursday. For now, 谢谢 and 再见。